Blessed be Jesus in the poorest of the poor. Because when you meet the poorest of the poor, you really see Christ. He really is there. The presence of Jesus in the lowly. And so if we want him in us, which Mother did, then she had to become lowly. And what everyone saw in her was her spirit of lowliness. Blessed are the lowly. And she really was. That's how she felt. That's how she was.
But she was a leader.
Remember what Jesus said to Peter and James, and they wanted to be, who was the first among you? Let him become as the least. That's how Jesus picked his leaders. So that they would be the servant of all. It's really a very little understood part of the gospel. And I think it's because of our pride. At the Last Supper in John's gospel, Jesus says he's about to leave them. He's going to give them this big example. He puts a towel on and washes their feet. And he said, what I have done was give you an example that you in turn may do this. By this they will know that you are my disciples, because you are a servant. So that the leader isn't somebody that's up there on a big high chair and always just kind of being served. And in fact, the Holy Father has the title, the servant of the servants of God. So when he really is, like he's the big Mahath. And we do honor him. But I think all that pageantry and all that stuff doesn't really add to it. I mean, I think he really sees it's really a crucifying place to be as the head of the spiritual world. That he really has to be lowly and the servant of all and lover of all.
So how would a rich person feel when they don't see, it's basically saying, well, Christ is not in you because you're rich.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that.
I'm just playing a...
Yeah, riches in the gospel sense is power. And riches to control. Really what money does and can do and can be so easily used by the evil one is to give us power, so that in that power we don't need God. When you're really rich and powerful, what do you need God for? And yet there's nothing more stupid than a wealthy man like Billy Graham says, there's no U-Hauls behind a hearse. What are you going to do with it? The power, our frailty, to overcome death or illness or whatever. So that the inclination and the desire for power and riches and this world's goods and fame are really so fleeting.
Most religious leaders say that. What do you say to people who, like this, at one point, I'll just throw this in, I got a little bit involved in Eastern, not religion so much as some Eastern spiritual practice.
Eastern mysticism.
Mysticism, which was very attractive.
It is, yeah. Me too.
Is it?
Yeah.
How is it interesting to you?
I think Thomas Merton, for instance, was one who was fascinated by it. Eastern spirituality.
Do you think Mother Teresa was interested in that?
I think she was kind of in that area. Albania is kind of closer to that Mid-Eastern kind of mentality, an Eastern kind of way of looking at it. Not totally European. And then, of course, India. She would have been very, very much into kind of mysticism.
So what area intrigues you about Eastern mysticism?
They have long traditions of there's two ways of approaching God. One is the negative approach, and that is the people who are ascetic, the ascetic kind of approach. People who kind of go at it with fastings, and they have a tradition of mortifications, and they have a tradition of detachments from this world, and that kind of not letting things dominate you. That's much more kind of an Eastern way of looking at it, a detached form from this world. And then there's the more positive, where you pursue the light and God and teaching. One is the kind of asceticism, and the other is the mysticism and the presence of God. So we do have great mystics who are Western mystics, like John of the Cross and Teresa of Avila, teaching us the way. But even there, they teach us how to come to this through the darkness into the light, how we come into this life of ours. And to take that, she's a great teacher of it. I'm very attracted by Teresa of Avila in this teaching. For instance, when I pursue God, many of the people that I know, how you pursue God, well, you increase your prayer, or you increase what you're doing. And she compares that to people growing a garden, a spiritual garden, and they have a nice garden, and they run around all day with their little sprinkler, and they water their garden. And they get crops, nice flowers, nice fruits, because they're faithful to the watering of the garden. And then she calls that a mansion of prayer. But then the one beyond that is when you come into a garden that is not raised by rain. But it's not raised by garden, but you wait for the rain.